Let's move on, David, to the United States and Donald Trump.
Yeah, so we've got the Wall Street Journal reporting. Now, I saw a wonderful cartoon of Donald Trump as a piñata, and all the press were hitting him with sticks. But what was falling out was vote Trump badges, and people were picking them up. And this is actually what's happening. So the Wall Street Journal reports here that a new survey has found that once the two-man race has collapsed to a lopsided contest in which Trump, for now, has no challenger. The former president is the top choice of 59% of GOP voters, up 11 points since April. So there's no doubt that Donald Trump, on current figures, is going to win the nomination for the Republican Party. In fact, he's so far ahead, he's not even going to the debates because he rather considers it's all the also-rans bickering and he doesn't want to be part of it. So what's the Democrat response going to be to this? Well, here we have public broadcasting service reporting. Liberal groups seek to use the 14th Amendment to block Trump from the 2024 ballot. The 14th Amendment bars anyone who once took an oath to uphold the Constitution but then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against it. A growing number of legal scholars say this post-Civil War clause applies to Trump after his role in trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election and encouraging his backers to storm the US Capitol, which of course he didn't do. So just want you to enjoy the moment here of complete lunacy. We've got one half of the population heavily backing the former president, and the response is, well, we're not going to let him run because that's the democratic way to conduct an election. It's becoming more and more like a banana republic, the United States.
It absolutely is. And Mark, we've got more on Trump and elections and so on. Perhaps some facts that the BBC isn't quite aware of.
Oh, this is absolutely amazing. And if you want me to do a little extra on this, I can in the interest of time. But over at VoterGA, probably the most competent and fact-conscious organization there is in the U.S. looking at the 2020 elections and beyond, they had a press conference very recently on the 29th of, a little earlier in the month. But anyway, here we're looking at a slide. The Fulton District Attorney, Fani Willis, misapplied the Georgia law throughout the 41-count indictment against Donald Trump and some 18 others, covering 4 states, Georgia being one of them, as we're showing here, the other states, Florida, New York, and then in Washington, D.C. And VoterGA, led by Garland Favorito, a contact of mine there, he's from the Atlanta area in Georgia, has been doing yeoman's work on this. And basically, they're calling it Fani's Phony 40. And you can go to voterga.org for a lot more on this. And there's a 98-page document that basically has the acts, the laws that is in Georgia that are supposedly being violated by Trump and his crew, and also has the indictments. And there was a case number and a judge both assigned to this case before the grand jury even voted on it. And there's all sorts of anomalies. Looking at this slide here, abiding by the election challenge, what Fani Willis claimed on August 14th at a press conference was, rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants, Trump and crew, engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn the results of Georgia's presidential election. And they're saying Trump's attorney filed the December 4, but this is what Garland Favorito is actually saying to set the record straight. What Fani Willis said is not true at all. Trump's attorneys actually filed the December 4, 2020 election challenge in Fulton County. The challenge was required to be heard in 20 days. That didn't happen. The Fulton County did not assign a judge until December 31st, more than 20 days later. And the hearing was scheduled January 8th, 2 days after Congress certified the votes. And that was 2 days after the so-called riot there, the January 6th infamous riot on Capitol Hill. And so Trump and crew actually did file the right process, as VoterGA has revealed in a very recent press conference, since that press conference held by Fani Willis. What Garland Favorito and VoterGA.org are saying here is that many statements made by Trump and crew are actually true, contrary to the DA there in Georgia. Most statements can likely be proven true if the evidence could be presented in court, which largely has not happened. And the defendants, Trump and company, did not knowingly, willfully, and unlawfully make false statements, contrary to the DA in Fulton County in Georgia. And even false statements are free speech protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In other words, you have the right to be wrong as long as you're not engaging in libel or slander. And this next slide reveals some interesting facts, and we'll comb through this quite quickly. We can always do more reflection in extra. Garland Favorito of VoterGA, the leader of that group, is saying that at least 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia, despite there being no record of those ballots having been returned to a county elections officer. And we'll move on from there. That's a very interesting and revealing statement. And this is kind of the capstone for today. This is part one, by the way. There's a lot to unpack here. In the next two UK column reports next week and or the following week, I'm going to do part two. And I talked to Garland last night to get this particular quote that we're looking at now. There's going to be a lot more because it reveals just how much the media is covering up and just how big the lie really is here. But here's the capstone for today. Georgia, and this is from Garland Favorito himself. I spoke to him last night. Georgia now claims Biden won the November 3rd, 2020 election by 11,779 votes. But on the morning of November 4, 2020, Georgia's Secretary of State acknowledged that Trump was ahead by 103,750 votes after 4.7 million people had voted, with only 94,000 left to count, which is 2% of 4.7 million. But the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, by the way, then certified another 200,000 plus phantom votes over a 3-day period, bringing the total overall vote count to 4.998 million. In parentheses, this is an editor's note. Those phantom ballots apparently have never been physically disclosed nor inspected and remain under wraps. So it's completely opaque whether Biden actually won Georgia at all. And the 11,779 margin that he supposedly won by is razor thin. And you have a couple 100,000 plus ballots that have not really been certified to have been counted or counted accurately. So what Garland is basically saying in summary is that there's a lot of things that have never been taken to court, and there's huge anomalies here. There's lots of reasons to believe that Trump actually won Georgia. And what does that say for the other states that Biden allegedly won to secure the election? Michigan, a battleground state, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, et cetera. A lot of that will be covered in part two.
Yeah.
But this is very compelling evidence that much has been misreported in a very big way about those elections.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Mark. And of course, this has a major impact on the ongoing indictments and so on. But we'll talk about a little bit more about that in extra. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you to John Watt for joining us today. And thank you to David and Mark as well. We'll be back in a few minutes for some extra if you're a UK column member. Do join us at 1 p.m. tomorrow for the interview we talked about in the ad break. And we will see you as usual at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.